here in 2019. We do have new information, so they do both raise those claims. But beyond that, they're very different. This action is asking the Corps to reinitiate its NEPA analysis, to order the Corps, the Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Marine Fisheries Service to reinitiate consultation under the Endangered Species Act to help understand the impacts of these that the regulation schedule can have on endangered species. To order the Fish and Wildlife Service to withdraw its 2018 biological opinion, and to order the National Marine Fisheries Service to withdraw its 2015 concurrence letter, and interestingly though, to enjoin Lake Okeechobee releases until the Corps, National Marine Fisheries Service, and the Fish and Wildlife Service comply with NEPA and the ESA. So that's a pretty big ask, and I don't know where they will get with that, but that is one of the requests. So what else is happening? What else is going on with the Corps? So maybe in response to these lawsuits, maybe not. The Corps has issued a draft environmental assessment and a proposed finding of no significant impact under NEPA regarding a planned deviation to the Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule for the harmful algae bloom to better manage the lake in circumstances of harmful algae blooms. They have some specific protocols, but basically, just from a very basic, high-level perspective, it's going to allow the Corps to alter the timing and volume of Lake Okeechobee releases to the conservation areas, that's south in the Everglades, to the east and to the west, to allow for greater flexibility to deal with harmful algae blooms when they are present or forecasted in Lake Okeechobee, or the St. Lucie or Caloosahatchee estuaries, or the system of canals that connect them. So this deviation is planned for a minimum duration of 1 year. I know that they have gotten some pushback from some governments to the south. I'm sure, I haven't seen the comments, but I'm sure that, U.S. Sugar sent some, but I have not seen them. But this is an analysis that the Corps is doing. I believe that they were taking public comments on it up until very recently, and I haven't heard anything beyond that. And then we all probably know about this, LOSUM. This is the new lake regulation schedule that is currently under development. This is a lengthy, extensive planning process. This is going to better incorporate SERP, the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, the projects that are coming online. This will kind of incorporate them into the lake's operations, the Herbert Hoover Dike rehabilitation, the Kissimmee River restoration, C43 and C44 reservoirs are all going to be kind of included in this analysis and in the operational manual. So this is the planning's ongoing now. We've had meetings here up in Stuart. We've had meetings all over the state. They're having their project delivery team meetings, public meetings, online webinars. I mean, the opportunities for input are just tremendous. And yeah, so additional planning. Also with this though, this is not going to be the regulation schedule that's necessarily going to be around forever either. I was interested to learn that they, even once this comes online, that they are planning on updating it again in just a handful of years as additional projects come online. So whether we end up in a situation like we did with Loris 2008, that was supposed to be 3 years, and here 12 years later, or 10 years, 12 years later, we're still operating under the same schedule, or whether in fact we may have a series of different regulation schedules in the next 10 years, yet to be determined. So is that, okay, I guess, is that it? Great. Okay, that is all that's
Time for a couple questions. I have one. Yeah. All right, so basically, we're sick and tired of studying the study before as our community, and it's getting old. We know what the problem is. We know how to fix it. We need point source pollution control. And then 70 out of 70 of us tested positive for microcystin in our nasal swab. 70 out of 70, that doesn't happen in any scientific study I've ever seen. So what can we do to help you? What can we do? What can we do to help you?
Honestly, I think that you guys are doing a good job. I think that what you're doing is a has to be taken into consideration. Obviously, we have a new administration at the state level. We have a new, wonderful, water management district governing board. I mean, they have a day compared to where we were a year ago. I mean, to think that a year ago, we were like about to go to war over the sugar leases that were issued with no notice in the dark of night, basically. And we were just, I mean, so much disdain was sent our way from the administration of the Water Management District. And so we have a great partner now, and I think that you're gonna get a lot more, we have an opportunity to take a lot of good action and move that line the other way in the next handful of years. And I urge everyone to get on board and let's make it happen, because now is the time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was trying to puzzle.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm not.
Go ahead.
It was interesting to sit at the meeting of the folks around Lake Okeechobee and hear from Palm Beach County that we were stealing their water.
Yes.
Because I don't think anybody here knew we were stealing their water.
Yes. It's not in
Has
the houses.
anybody explained to them that Palm Beach County has cut off from the lake when Sugar is still getting water?
Yes, but they don't care.
Okay.
They,
You know that.
yes, I mean, yes, we have tried to explain it to them. Look, if the water is held in the lake for the benefit of Lake Okeechobee agricultural users, it's not going to any municipalities. The only way, what is kind of escaping people, and I think some of the local governments to the south, is that the way that they get water is by sending the water south. That's how their well fields are actually replenished. If you hold it in the lake, if you truly just held it in the lake, which is what U.S. Sugar is asking, their well fields could dry up and they wouldn't get a drop. So the way that you benefit them is to keep flowing water south. That's what benefits their water supply and their well fields. So yes, Maggie, kind of escaped, I'm sorry.
Let's say,
Is there
a few
anybody in
more,
Palm
got,
Beach County who's here?
Yes, a handful of people, we'll talk.
Joe, then Charles and John and
Go ahead.
Allison, let's take these couple here, real quick.
Okay, they may bring on the new low zone,
Yes,
okay? And in that, it says that the lake can be lower.
yes.
What does that do
To
to the
the lawsuit.
lawsuits?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think that these lawsuits are kind of going to be mooted out at some point if they haven't already been. You know, the Corps is already doing analysis under NEPA to manage the lake lower. This action that they took, you know, what is already concluded. If they sought to use that operational flexibility within the regulation schedule to lower the lake again, conceivably, the Sugar's claim could persist, and they could continue to raise those issues.
Bring up more.
They could
lawsuits.
continue to raise that again, or even under this existing suit. But I think that if there's issues with LOSUM, we're gonna see separate and individual suits over that are specifically targeted towards that.
Okay, let's go to Charles, George, and then back up to Charles, quick.
If they
Charles,
were, if they were to be successful in getting a judge to declare that the NEPA analysis should be done before any deviation, do we have a sense of how much of a delay in implementing the deviation would occur in order to accomplish the analysis?
If the Corps concluded that an environmental assessment was
No, if the court
adequate,
concluded, they're asking for.
if the Corps concluded that they needed to do more analysis, they would send it back to the Corps to do that analysis. The Corps then has an opportunity to say, we believe that an environmental assessment, which is a relatively short analysis, is sufficient, or an environmental impact statement or supplemental analysis to our environmental impact statement is necessary. That's a decision that the Corps would likely be tasked with making. Conceivably, I guess the Corps could direct them to do one of those two things, but assuming that they left it in the hands of the Corps, then they would have the opportunity to do that analysis. It would either be relatively short, like this, that's that paper that they wrote, that was a relatively short paper on the environmental assessment and FONSI for the harmful algal blooms. That takes a month or two. If you're talking about a full-blown environmental impact statement, obviously that's a more lengthy process. It's got public comment, public notice requirements. That could take perhaps as much as a year. However, they
There
are.
would be no deviation this year.
Well, however, it might be no no lowering of the lake under the existing operational flexibility. However, like I said, they are still going forward with this harmful algal bloom modifications that could allow them to manage the lake differently during times when algae blooms are present or experienced. So that in and of itself could be, that additional flexibility could be a big benefit to the estuary. So hopefully they wouldn't be making the releases during times of high algae blooms, which is, it may be the best we can hope for under that worst case scenario.
Go real quick to George and then.
Lisa, what, I mean, in your opinion maybe or whatever, but don't both these suits, weren't they really brought to sort of influence the motion process as
I
it moves forward?
think that the first one definitely, or I think that the one that was filed first,
Right.
which is the Center for Biological Diversity, the Enviros
Yeah.
lawsuit. Yes, I believe that that was done partially to influence LOSUM, but also in recognition that the Corps really just has not taken endangered species properly into account. And we do have a lot of additional information, and that is something that needs to be
Well, that
evaluated.
was the second
Now,
follow-up.
the
Is,
second-
will it do any good
Um,
as far as a lawsuit, or will it be muted as LOSUM moves forward? Because I think both of them were designed to influence the process. My
I think
question
they
is just
were.
how much influence will they have?
Well, the Enviros lawsuit is scheduled for jury trial, which I was intrigued to read, in, just next spring.
Okay, so.
So conceivably, that could actually, you could have a ruling on that one prior to LOSUM being fully developed or even for.
So that would in
certainly not-
fact affect LOSUM as it fully develops too with that lawsuit.
It could,
Yeah.
and you have to recognize that the goal of that lawsuit is to benefit endangered species, to benefit the environment of not just the lake itself, but also the estuaries. And,
Sure.
I think that is a very well-intentioned
Oh, I understand.
claim.
Let's go to Alex, another one,
For the most part.
and then we got the board.
Thank you, Lisa, great presentation. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the Corps' authority to deviate in an emergency and if algal blooms or harmful algal bloom discharges are considered an emergency in the Corps' analysis.
I honestly don't know that last question, but the court does have, the ability to deviate in an emergency. They do it regularly for, other parts of the system. In this case, with regard to the harmful algal blooms, they probably won't need to use an emergency deviation this year because they are going through that environmental assessment, finding of no significant impact process, where they have already identified those protocols that they're going to take to proactively deal with that.
There was one in the back that had a question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the presentation. I found it interesting and enlightening and am grateful for the levity because we're not used to that in this room. And in answer to Kenny's question, I'm curious, has anyone suggested to those around the lake and to Big Sugar that perhaps if they stop drinking the water, they get a different perspective?
All right, one in the back.
Maybe they
Dan?
should drink it.
And then I'll
Maybe they
your last
should drink
question.
it.
Yeah, Ben. Ben, real quick.
Lisa, Ben Hogarth, the city of Stuart, actually, great presentation, but for the benefit of the group, I have a question because when we were working with Martin County, kind of doing our analysis early on before the new LOSUM, one of the things I was reading about was how the Army Corps has all of its alternative release schedule, what will happen with the crops, like it'll be a 5% yield in this scenario, all that. When I was watching it play out over the summer, I actually laughed when I found out that the Army Corps had issued its lawsuit right when it did, because I saw the same thing that you all saw, which is right when that band kind of intersected, is right when they dropped the lawsuit. My understanding, though, is from a legal perspective is, and I think the Army Corps realized the same thing, if they were to discharge at that point, I think that would effectuate an actual litigious kind of wrongdoing or offense.
I mean, I
Them
think
managing
they
it,
were-
otherwise, I didn't see
Yeah.
anything before that, so it was really confusing for me, and I didn't know if you could kind of provide a little bit more insight into that part, because everything that they did seemed like it was within the normal scope of even the 2008 war, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if they were to continue to lower the lake all the way into actual water shortage and continue even once water shortage, we've entered the water shortage line, I think that, certainly it gives the appearance of not caring or perhaps being arbitrary or capricious or not considering all the necessary information. In this case, they actually stopped the discharges a few months prior to entering the water shortage zone. And then the lake just naturally, because of our very dry start to our rainy season, that's really what caused the lake to continue to progress lower on the scale. It wasn't the fact that they were making releases, because those releases had already ceased. But I mean, I think that you're right. I think that if they were to continue making these preemptive releases all the way through into water shortage zones, I think that that would certainly give some credibility to the U.S. Sugar argument.
They don't tell you that, before, in the early spring, when they did make releases to the estuaries, and we talked about don't continue into the spawning season in the spring. They were aware of that, and they stopped those kind of things. They did continue in the Caloosahatchee bit because they needed more water. But they were also releasing water south. And what they don't tell you is a lot of water, over 300,000 acre feet, went south for irrigation. And
Yeah.
from November through May every year, the EAA gets irrigation water, water supply from the lake. So part of the lake lowering was part of them getting irrigation water during the process.
Right, it probably wasn't.
So you could have argued, well, you helped create this shortage by getting water.
In case anybody doesn't know, the EAA is the Everglades Agricultural
Agricultural District south of the lake. One real quick, and then we gotta wrap up and go to the next one.
This is not a question, it's a statement. And Lisa and I were litigating over backpumping 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But remember what the Corps was trying to do this spring? We had Hurricane Irma, the lake got really dirty, got really deep. We lost about 70 square miles of plant communities out of the lake. They got drowned from the deep water. And those, especially are the ones that grow between 9 and 11 feet. And so the Corps wanted to get the lake down to about 11 feet. And that's what we asked them to do, because that way the sunlight will reach the bottom, and only, those seeds won't germinate unless they have sunlight on them. So they can't germinate until you get down to about 11 feet. So the Corps saw the opportunity to do it. The lake was already relatively low. They let out about 4 inches of water. They also were giving extra water to the Caloosahatchee estuary. The regulation schedule says that the 650 CFS, they actually need 800 to 1,000 to get optimal conditions. And so the Corps said, fine, we'll do that. We'll give you optimal conditions. So they were helping the Caloosahatchee estuary. They're helping Lake Okeechobee. They're sending water south of the Everglades. They were helping the environment. The sugar farmers never got rationed. They sued over the possibility that they might get rationed. And so it's just their mindset that they should get everything. The lake should be, forget helping the lake, forget helping the Caloosahatchee. We should hold the water for them. And that's pretty much what their position has been. So the Corps was doing the right thing. We really appreciate it, and it's just, it's a really nice thing to see. Thanks.
What we have seen year after year after year, no matter what the conditions, your estuary could turn green, the Caloosahatchee could turn green. No, everyone else might have no water, but guess what? The yields for the sugarcane crops every year are absolutely perfect, better than the year before. I mean, there's rarely a year, no matter what the conditions, where the sugarcane yields are not as good as or better than they were the year before. So, I mean, just trying to understand how every other part of the system suffers catastrophic impacts, huge losses to our economies, and every single year, the yield is as good as, if not better than the year before. You rarely can even where it's a drought year, you rarely see any impacts at all. I mean, am I right? I know, Paul, you look at this stuff. Yeah, okay.
Well, thank you. Help me thank, All right, our agenda, we're gonna go through our reports. We're starting with, government agencies in Martin County, the state, and then, state government.
So, thank you. My name is John Merrill. I'm with Martin County. I don't know if this works. I don't know if I need it.
Just speak loud.
So, I start off first by saying that Diane Hughes is on extended leave. For those of you that know her, know the situation. And for the time being, Katie Bose, I think most of you have met. Can you raise your hand, Katie?
Katie.
She'll be standing in her stead and picking up all the critical roles that both Diane shepherds. And I just have to give a shout out to Katie. Her capacity to pick up very complex processes and very critical functions for that role. It's been very impressive how quickly she's picked it up, and MS4, the MPDS, or BMAS. Katie will be kind of ushering those processes for us. I'm going to move through this pretty quick
Hold on,
because.
it's not, the computer's not happy.
Well, we can still get them on.
Give it a comment.
And you don't want the computer.
Not too many acronyms.
It's just,
So, am I okay?
it's just thinking, it's not responding, so.
It's,
All
I have to shut
right.
down some processes.
I'm guessing that most of you probably look at this every day anyway. The lake level is currently at 13.71, which is wonderful for this time of year, but what's even
It's
more
just red
exciting
one, I have-
is that the discharges are again exceeding inflows. So the lake level increase has leveled off, and we're at a great stage. When you look at this chart.
Oh, sorry, John.
Can you all see this?
It'll be on the website.
The best part of this for me when I look at it in the morning is that in about another month, almost every one of these goes down. There's maybe one or two exceptions in the last 20 years that don't stop their vertical increase. And what I like to point out whenever I get a chance is we get a little bit myopic when we look at these sometimes, when we look at it year by year, because that's how these lines are illustrated. I have tried to illustrate this in a continuous 80-year record. It's impossible. So this is why we have to look at it this way. However, what's important to note is when we end here, you don't start over at some baseline over here, you start over where we left off. So the reason this is such great news is because typically when you end in this range over here, you have a great year the following year. So we're well staged for 2020 at this point. We don't need any storms. This chart here, which you can't see, shows the discharges from the S80 over the last couple months, and all that's reflected there is C44 basin runoff. For most of the summer, at our request, the Corps of Engineers was discharging our basin runoff into Lake Okeechobee, which was wonderful. It was several billion gallons that we didn't have to absorb in our estuary. But now they are discharging to our local estuary, but it's minimal. It's 300 to 400 CFS. The average that you can see on this next chart, which I hope all of you are looking at this every day. See right here, what does that say? The average is 81 CFS over the last 7 days from the S80. So that's great. We'd like it to be zero, but that's great. The best news on here is that the average, 7-day average going south is 1,800 CFS. We just had a great report last week that I won't steal any of Dr. Gray's thunder, but the amount of water that's moved south this year is remarkable, and it wasn't in a particularly wet season, so it really speaks highly of the improvements that the system has already had, and there's so many improvements that are just on the dawn of being available to the system. So there's a lot to be excited about. The district and the Corps of Engineers, mainly the district, is getting projects done, and those projects are going to make a profound difference. And the performance of those projects in terms of nutrient reduction are remarkable, and should fuel our fire to continue with these. The next slide here is our Enterococcus levels of bacteria. She's with me now. Pretty typical. We were a little bit high at Sanskrit, but pretty good everywhere else. Fortunately, we didn't get a lot of rain from Dorian like we were fearful of, and that helped to keep the bacteria levels a little bit lower. And then the next two slides show the salinity levels at the midpoint in the estuary. They're about 16 on the surface, or on the bottom, and about 9 on the surface. And what I'd really like to talk about, and what I get most excited about, is the things that the county is working on in our local watershed, because that's something that I can actually affect. We've got a lot of great things happening. First of all, the project updates. If you ever get down by the airport across from the fairgrounds, you'll see the construction happening behind the bus barn. That's a stormwater treatment area retrofit that's going to treat a critical discharge point. It's a lot of the earthwork's done, so it looks like it's really made some great progress. But as we know from construction projects, the details, they just come to a grinding halt. And probably next spring that'll be done, but it's already starting to perform a treatment function. We also have some great news in the last few weeks. Commissioner Hurd and her counterparts, I'm hoping will approve the reception of a couple of grants that we were recently awarded. One would be from a governor's request for this $25 million that would be administered to the DEP for general water quality projects. Of that $25 million, Martin County received $3.2 million of it. That was a statewide program, so we did very well. 2 of that will be to supplement the $4 million that the board approved for septic to sewer. And that will move forward our Golden Gate septic to sewer conversion, about 750 connections, in a really critical spot where it's desperately needed. And then we're also probably going to get started on Old Palm City retrofit. That's going to be dependent a little bit on some other funding sources, but there's a whole lot going on in Old Palm City. And I could probably save that for another day, but there's like a whole community enhancement project. We have a stormwater treatment area that's going to be added into. There's going to be conveyance improvements to improve stormwater drainage, and then of course the last step would be the septic to sewer. It's really great to see at the county how all these different departments work together to be efficient and to go into a place, address all these needs, and move on. But if you're looking for real estate, that might be a good place to invest right now. I need a legal disclaimer. River Cove, we just completed. That's on the east end of the Stuart Causeway. It's just a river access. It historically has been unimproved, but kind of a high attendance area. So we added some parking, shelter, and some erosion control. We're doing the exact same thing on the Jensen Beach Causeway. That project is just about ready to break ground. And alongside that, which is a little bit less visible, but probably just as exciting or more, we got about $1 million from the federal government through the FWC to do some restoration work at the Jensen Beach and Palmac mangrove habitat. And we're going to do some experiments in there with the FWC, but the main function is to improve the hydrologic conditions, to get better flushing through there. And then we're also going to do a replanting of the mangroves in some areas. And then BMAP, that's Basin Management Action Plan. What that is,
You got another slide or something? Yeah, okay.
that is kind of a one-of-a-kind in the nation program to implement the improvement plan for meeting a total maximum daily load limit established by the federal government for impaired waters. And our waters here are impaired for nutrients, of course, but also copper. And so we've identified as a stakeholder, along with many other stakeholders, projects to help achieve that nutrient reduction goal. We had a mandatory 5-year review that we've been going through this year. We're going to finish up at the end of the year, but we largely know what it's going to be now. They implemented a new model system to replace a spreadsheet system that they'd used in the past that stakeholders were fairly critical of, that it was too obtuse an instrument, and we didn't have a lot of confidence in it. The WASH model that they've introduced is supposed to be a lot more accurate. It's something we asked for. What it did do is it increased our loads. So it identified a higher load allocations to all the stakeholders, which is a good thing because we all want less nutrients in the water. So we went from having met 130% of our nitrogen reduction goal for Martin County to about 70%. By the time we finish submitting some paperwork, it's already at 95%. And then the septic to sewer program over the next couple of years, we're going to blow our goal out of the water. So Martin County has shown a commitment to going well above and beyond what the state of the federal government has required in terms of pollution control. And on the phosphorus, that's where and then on the phosphorus side, it's a little bit harder. The phosphorus takes more money essentially and land to deal with that. We went from about 58% to 48% on that. However, we want to keep moving ahead and trying to achieve that 50% with local projects like East Fork Creek and like Ripple and Willoughby. Those are great projects for that. But we have a safeguard in that the county had the foresight to invest heavily in the C-44 project. And when they did that, they had the foresight to establish an agreement with the Water Management District and the Corps of Engineers to have a 16% stake in the nutrient reductions for that. So the minute that turns on and we're able to monitor the nutrient reduction performance of the C-44, Martin County will receive 16% of the phosphorus credit for that, which will be massive. We'll be setting very good with it. Any questions?
I worked in West Palm Beach, and you can tell that you hit Martin County because you smelled the orange blossoms. The rest of the turnpikes, the orange groves are gone, they're all sugar farms now. Are they impacting our estimate?
Local runoff being changed, the land use change.
Land use changed, the runoff has changed, in the last 10 years it gets worse every year. We've had 90 days now of fresh water. South Fork is 0 salinity, Roosevelt this morning was 7.
That's not good conditions. So, go ahead, Don.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess, the short answer is yes, there's 15% more sugar in Martin County than there was a year ago. And a lot of that, fallow citrus, they're doing dry land sugar production. It's definitely a concern. We work closely with the DEG and FDACs on making sure that, that those best management practices are what they need to be. It's a little bit of a new beast, and so it requires a close eye. And, all we can do from the county is to make sure that we're pointing out areas where we have concerns. We had a great meeting with DEP last week on a site in South County that we feel like there's an area for improvement, and they're gonna pursue that with FDAC. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Everything that happens on the land impacts the stormwater.
Good. Just one quick questions, maybe 2 quick questions. Maggie, and listen, and we gotta move
I know
on.
everybody's
John will
really
be
tired.
around. John will be around for afterwards. So,
Everybody's really tired of studies and monitoring, but one of the problems we've had with the VMAP thing is that we're doing models, but we're not monitoring whether the models are accurate and whether it's happening. Is Martin County doing what they need to monitor all these wonderful things to show they really did it, or are we just presuming?
I really appreciate that question, Maggie. It gives me another opportunity to brag. So whenever we build a stormwater treatment area retrofit, usually we have federal money in that through the 319 non-point source program. The county is very generous for this program. They place a high value on it, but we try to leverage those dollars at least 50%, if not more. And those programs always require us to do at least a year of monitoring and follow-up. And when they don't, we voluntarily do it. So the results are, generally speaking, we outperform what was modeled, and in almost every case. And then when we get to the end of that monitoring, we're able to sometimes tweak things. We can say, well, this isn't the right vegetation, or